I'm connecting now.
Oh, I see somebody turning on their camera. That's great.
Yeah, there you go. That is Mr. Adamus over there, right? And you know, for those of you who are in the chat or here in the Zoom already, remember that if you have any questions about what's happening, you can post it in the chat, and then we will review them as we load towards the end. But if it does seem like something very pertinent to what Audrey is saying at that moment, we can pause and talk. Okay, but
So, Mr. Castro, are the students who logged in with just their names, are they at home? They're not in the classroom?
oh, it's a mix. Some of them are in the classroom with a head Zoom different ways. Give me one moment.
Yeah, it's really hard to hear you. I think it just froze for a minute, but you want to try again? I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, so I've just been told by a colleague that I'm breaking up.
Yeah.
So this room is, I don't know, it's horrible for internet. So I'm going to move to a different section. But Audrey, in the meanwhile, you can please introduce yourself, and I'll be going
Sure,
on with this for a little bit. Yeah.
sure. So I'd love if anybody who's at home to turn on their camera, because I'm kind of just speaking into black boxes. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love you to turn on your cameras so I could see you and interact with you better. You know, I'll tell you, this is a problem that we have. We have, you know, as an attorney, you have, thank you, whoever just turned on your camera. I really appreciate it. Oh, terrific. Thanks, guys. I feel better now. At least I could like see your faces. Thank you very much. Which is, you know, something you should know about being a lawyer is persuasion. So I'm glad that I could tell you I am a pretty successful lawyer because I've just persuaded some people at least to turn on their cameras. And I hope as we talk, more people will get interested and turn on their cameras as well. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm here. I did not, when I was growing up, when I was your age, I had absolutely no interest in being a lawyer. I didn't know what a lawyer did. And even broader than that, I didn't know all of the careers and livelihoods that are available if you are in the legal world. So there's a lot to do being a lawyer, being a judge, working in the courts. There's a lot to do with technology. There's a lot to do with investigations. There's a whole world out there of careers where you don't have to be a lawyer. I am a lawyer. I went to law school at Fordham in New York, but I didn't start out as a lawyer. After I graduated college, I really had absolutely no idea what to do. And I looked in, then we didn't have, you know, jobs listed on the internet. You actually went to a newspaper, and I looked at the ads for jobs, and I pulled one out not knowing anything about a law firm, but I got a job as a receptionist at a law firm, which meant answering telephones. And I really was terrible at it. The switchboard made me crazy. I didn't get off the phone fast enough with people. I talked too much. And the partner came over to me and he said, you know, this is like not for you. You're not doing a good job. And I said, I know. I said, but is there anything else you could give me? I'm just not good with the phones. And he said, well, there's this like bunch of paper back there and it has to be filed. You really just have to alphabetize it and organize it somehow. So I went to the back room and I organized this mess and I became a paralegal, which is something I'd like to tell you guys about because that is a great way to enter the legal field. And what a paralegal does is they assist attorneys, and doing that you learn and you get the experience where you'll have that if you do want to apply to law school or stay a paralegal or do anything else. But my path changed because I really loved it. I loved the excitement of a law firm. I loved what they did. And I eventually decided to go to law school. So the beautiful thing about law is that anything that interests you, you can find a way to do that in the legal world. What I wanted to do was I wanted to represent people who were victims. I wanted to help people who were hurt. I had worked with some people who had cerebral palsy, and I knew some people who had a lot of physical disabilities just from growing up, my own family. And I always felt that if I could do anything in life, I wanted to help those people. And I thought about being a physical therapist. I thought about, being a psychologist, all different things. I wanted to help them. And when I was busy just putting these like massive papers in an organized fashion, I said, oh my God, what lawyers do is they represent people and they make sure that people have a voice. And I found a law firm that gives a voice to people. So what I do, and you could do anything, but I'll tell you about what I do, is I represent people who are injured and they're usually dying from diseases caused by toxic chemicals. Most recently, and this is how I know your teacher, Mr. Perlmutter, because he heard me talk about this because it completely became my entire life for about 10 years, is I represent women who use talcum powder and got mesothelioma from that talcum powder because there's asbestos in talcum powder. So just that, I've worked with many people who are lawyers and who aren't lawyers. And I'll just give you a list of people who I've worked with on that one aspect of my career. We've worked with, obviously, judges, investigators who investigated why there is asbestos in talcum powder. These guys went out to mines and took samples of the talc from the mines and then brought it to pathologists who looked at the talc and figured out that there was asbestos in the talc. So already you have investigators who go out. They're like, we call them the boots on the ground guys. They try to find people who manufactured the talc so that they could find out what ingredients went in it. We also have on this big project, we have many, many people, and I think they are the most important people in the whole litigation. They're just computer guys, and they organize all these documents. So where I started out 20 years ago, putting papers in alphabetical order or sorting by defendant names, now we have people who are so instrumental. And what they're doing is the thing that your age group is great with this. They're putting documents in an organized fashion so that when the lawyer goes to court, and I say, my best computer guy is named Josh. And I say, Josh, get me that document that talked about Cypress mines from 1964 to 1968, right? And I can't do it. I don't know how to do it, but he goes and finds that document like that. So there's a lot of people who are super instrumental in litigation that are great with computers. What other kinds of what other kinds of skills do we have? We have writers. I mean, if you like to write, there are people who I will say, they're better writers than I am. They just like to write. I'll call them, I'll say, hey, Karen, could you put together a summary for me? You like writing, put together a summary. It's got to have all these facts in it, and they write. Not all lawyers are like the adversary kind of thing. Not all lawyers are in trial like you see at TV. There are a lot of lawyers who just love to write, and they do it at a desk. They never go into court. And then there are lawyers in this litigation who are in court all the time, and they're battling, in court with the defendants. So that's a little bit about what I do. And it all started because I just wanted to represent victims. So what I'd like you to do, I'm getting a, having issues with the camera. I think that's okay. All right. What I'd like you to do is tell me what you like. Like, if you could spend your life doing something, what would it be? Anybody have anything? I mean, do you like art? Do you like music? Do you like football? Do you like computers? Um, do you like figuring out, like, do you like watching Law and Order and you really enjoy figuring out who committed the crime? Just give me
I think
anything.
Priscilla Molina has her hand up. Go ahead, Priscilla.
I think something I pass my life to do, I like to do it is help people
Yep.
to be better or to help people to feel better.
So like, okay, so that was a lot like me. I mean, my ultimate goal was I really didn't care how to do it. I just wanted to go to sleep every night feeling like I did something good, right? And as a lawyer, if that's what you want to do, there's any number of ways you could do it. You could kind of focus on a population, okay? So a lot of lawyers represent elderly people. Senior citizens have a hard time filing for Medicare. They have a hard time getting Medicaid if they need it. They have a hard time getting housing if they need it. If they have to fight with their landlord because the landlord refuses to put a ramp in when an elderly person needs a wheelchair, they go to a lawyer. So if you focused on, I want to help elderly people, those would be the kinds of things that you would do. And I kind of like that because it's something that you have a niche. Like, I love my career because I have a niche. I'm representing women who are sick from a toxic chemical. Okay. I like if you like to help people, figure it out, whoever it is that you like to help. Maybe you like to help kids. If you like to help kids, you could be an education lawyer and make sure that a kid who's maybe getting kicked out of school or maybe needs some special help at school gets that help. Like, say there's a gifted child who's not getting anything out of classes. You can represent that child against the school district and say, hey, school district, this student needs better services. Or you could represent the school district and try to get more funding for schools. So is there like a population that you think you would really be interested in helping? Like, I wake up every day and I'm like, okay, Priscilla's on it. She's going to go help who? Who is that?
I think all people, most like all people that have something that is bad, like uh, accident sometimes.
Okay, so what you could do is if you want to help an elderly population, a way to start this at your age is you could try to look into or think about representing people who might need, well, if they're in an accident, you could help people file forms to get no fault coverage if they're in a car accident. There's a lot of agencies where you could volunteer and just get some experience. So somebody is in a car accident, they don't know where to go, what to do. You could help them find an attorney who will represent them, or you can help them fill out the forms so that they can get coverage from their insurance carrier. Many people don't know how to file forms, so you could look at that. So if you want to, just think about, there's so many legal agencies that help people. The biggest one is legal aid. And what they do is they offer services to people for anything. Like if someone is charged with a crime, you could do anything. And to start off, you could say, just like I started off, answering those telephones, you start off saying to any one of these agencies that help elderly people or help people in car accidents, you say, listen, I have no experience yet, but I want to kind of come to you for 2 weeks just so I could learn. And let me answer the phones, or let me just, take people from room A to room B and just try to do it like that. Or you could read up on it and see what, what elderly people need or what people need who are in car accidents, and you could help them, you know, and just start like that. But I think it's really good at your age to try to focus on a population because it becomes a smaller universe and doable. Okay, anybody else have, I see some questions. What would you do in a case that a person gives his or her friend something to eat without knowing that his or her friend is allergic to it? Well, whose question is that? Where are you? I can't see.
So, and that's Mamadou Berry. He asked that question.
Okay. I'll tell you what a lawyer would do. Was this at, well, I would find out these facts. Is this, did a friend do this? His or her friend. So this is just a friend. So, you know, if you give somebody something that they are allergic to, it would really, a lawyer would say, well, did you know it? You know, like say you were the person, lawyer, what could you do with a situation like that? You could represent either person. Say it's a student and he's getting in trouble in school because he gave something to a friend and the friend had a really, really bad allergic reaction to it. The principal of the school might say, you know, you did this intentionally. We want to figure out why you did this and make sure this doesn't happen again. Sometimes people get in a lot of trouble. I don't know about this, but I'll take it broader. If you do something that you get in trouble for in school, there are lawyers who represent you and the student, and there are also lawyers who represent the school. And what a lawyer who represents a school would do is make sure that there are procedures in place where this doesn't happen. So a lot of allergic kids might go to the school board and say, you know, we need you, school board, to institute a policy where students who have allergies have a separate table. So there's none of this mix up anymore. We need you to have a procedure where you tell your employees who work in the cafeteria that they have to be careful about allergies. So a lawyer could get involved in this in any number of ways. One of the things we were talking about is helping people. So as an attorney, you could represent the student who needs extra protection because of the allergies, or you could represent the school, and it's not always adversarial. It could be a lawyer could guide the school to show them ways that they would comply with the Americans for Disabilities Act, where, you know, students who have allergies are protected. They have to be in a safe environment. So that's kind of the ways that lawyers could get involved in that. Lawyers are also mediators. So say these two kids are really battling it out. A lawyer could come in and mediate. A lot of lawyers who like to make things work, they don't like fighting, they like to make things work, they become mediators or arbitrators. And they say, okay, why did you give your friend this, you know, thing that made this food that had him, that was bad for him, that he was allergic to? And they say to the other kid, you know, why did you take it? Did you know that this was, you know, something that would make you sick? So mediators try to bring people together, and they do that from small things to very, very big things. Like we have mediators we go to mediators with my office when we're battling General Electric or Westinghouse, huge companies. And we're fighting, and we can't come to a settlement. We go to a mediator. Sometimes the court will say, you have to go to a mediator, and that mediator will try to work out our differences. Did that answer your question a little bit?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. What ways that you can feel like you are helping others while being a lawyer? You can focus on a specific population that needs help, for example, elderly. I don't know. It sounded like.
Sorry, that was me summarizing something.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
I got you. Anybody else have something they like to do?
I saw a while back that Marina had her hand up, so maybe give her a chance. Marina, are you still with us?
Marina? I think you have to unmute her.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, I can ask to mute.
Hey, sorry, my brother's right next to me. I like to help people a lot. So actually, there's two things I want to do, which one of them is I want to be a lawyer. And the second one, I'm thinking of being a doctor or a nurse. So I'm still picking. And this was a great way to actually know what I want by listening to you.
Okay, so I have a couple of things I'd love to tell you. You know, nurses, doctors, lawyers, they're all helping professions. I look at it that way. But being a nurse or being in a healthcare field can also intersect with the legal field. The people who I represent them because they have diseases. And we also, or they were hurt in an accident. Like there are people who we represent who were very, very badly hurt in a bus accident, or they were hit by a truck or a train accident. Do you remember the Metro North accidents when there was a big crash on Metro North a couple of years ago? It's going back a while. But anyway, there's if there's a train accident, many people are injured. And what lawyers do is they work with nurses or really anybody in the healthcare profession. They work with nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and they say, we need to understand how this person was hurt. What is their medical situation? So lawyers also get into the legal field. I mean, nurses and doctors become very important to the legal field because when lawyers need to prove their case, they need to go to the medical professionals to understand how badly they're hurt. Nurses and other healthcare professionals also intersect with the legal world when they're trying to get, say, disability. Somebody is hurt in an accident and they want to file with the government to get disability benefits. Nurses and doctors will fill out forms so that they can get those benefits. So there's many ways that all of those things you're talking about could intersect with a legal career. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I think I see another one. What do you wish you had known about your career before you started? Wow, that is an awesome question. That is really an awesome question. What would I have wanted to know? What did I wish I knew before I started? Wow, I'm trying to think back to like when I was your age. I guess I was pretty lucky because I didn't realize how much my career was going to satisfy what I wanted to do with my life. But I think when you start out, you should really speak to people who actually do it. Okay. So if you want to, say you love sports and you want to you want to have a career somehow in sports, and you say, I want to get into the legal world of helping or working with athletes, right? So you want to work with people who are athletic and you want to represent them in the legal world, and you think this would be great. So what I would have done, or at least in hindsight, what I would do is say, I want to speak to a lawyer who actually represents people in sports, okay? So who would you talk to? You'd talk to people who write contracts for people who are for football players or basketball players or whatever it is. There are lawyers who represent individual sports players, right? There's also lawyers who represent Madison Square Garden because that's where a lot of the games are played. There's lawyers who represent the National Football Association or the Basketball Association. So I would talk to those people and see, you know what? Are you really working with the players, or are you alone in an office somewhere writing contracts? So I think the way to answer your question is, it might sound really glamorous, but you should talk to people who actually do it. So like if somebody wanted to do what I do, they would say to me, what do you do every day? And I think that's what you'd want to find out for anything, you know, any career that you go into. For me, I would have liked to know, what are the hours? I didn't recognize in the beginning that the hours that a lawyer puts in are huge. Some lawyers work less hours than others, depending on the career. I had no idea that the path that I took would be very all-encompassing as far as hours. I mean, I could work 7 days a week, 13, 14 hours a day. So I would have liked to know that before I started. I don't know if it would have changed my mind because I'm so happy doing it, you know, but when you speak to somebody who actually does it, those are the things you try to find out. So I would ask, you know, what do you really do every day? What's your day like? And ask them about hours, ask them about money. You know, how much money do you make? Do you usually get raises doing this? You know, how would I have to move? Would I have to travel? Those are all things that I think in hindsight, if I knew before, I might have been able to tweak it a little bit to be more what I wanted. Let's see. What do you dislike before you started? Does being a lawyer sometimes scare you? Every day, every single day. It is a huge responsibility to represent people. You know, I'm their voice in court and I'm their advocate. And if I don't do a good job, I'm not doing a good job for them. So that is absolutely true. It is very, very, very scary being a lawyer. You have to be up for the task, but I think that's true in any profession in the legal world. If you are we talked about this a little bit. If you're a nurse and you're writing a report so that a lawyer can understand the gravity of an injury, you got to get that right. I mean, if you underestimate the gravity of that injury and that person gets, you know, $10,000 instead of $100,000 for their medical care, you know, that's on you. So that it is really, really, really scary being anything in the legal field. On the other hand, when you get a job, you are trained. It's a lawyer's responsibility to train people who work for them. So everybody who does anything in my office, they are well trained. I can't send them out to do something if they're not really ready to do it, because then that's on me. So yes, it is scary, but I think it's kind of scary like before you go into a football game, you know, you kind of revved up and you get excited that you know, you're going to win. It's kind of like that scary. There are scary things about lawyers that some have to deal with. For instance, some lawyers really don't like speaking in public. I did not. I was extremely shy, and it was very, very scary for me to speak in public. You know, so, but you've got to, you know, you learn, and hopefully you learn in a place where people will train you and help you. I was when I shared with somebody in my firm that I really was not a good public speaker, I was very surprised that he had the same problem, because I looked at him and I was like, oh my God, he could, you know, he could speak in front of all these people and he doesn't get nervous and he doesn't get rattled. And he shared with me that he takes 15 minutes and he's got to compose himself because he's really, really scared to do it. So, you know, there are scary things, but like with any profession, like with anything you do, you hopefully get trained so that you're not that scared. Let's see. What do you dislike or like most about your work? and what is the toughest problems you handle? The toughest problem I handle is when I cannot, for some reason, get my client the recovery that I really think they deserve. Laws are not always, what they should be. Well, I feel there's a lot of politics involved, but sometimes you really can't, do what you want. For instance, there's something called the statute of limitations. And when people are injured, they have to file a claim within a certain amount of time. So if you're in a bus accident today, you have to find a lawyer and file a case within 3 years. Sometimes people call and do I have to admit? I don't know. Sometimes people call after 3 years and I have to tell them that it's just too late. So that is really, really hard for me to do. If I can't help somebody, it's very hard. Sometimes the toughest problems are that the hours are really long and it interferes with, my family life. Everyone has to find a balance. And I've found that, that to me is one of the toughest things. What did you want to know about your career before you started? I don't think I appreciated the amount of hours. So I'd say that's one of the toughest things, working that many hours. How do you feel when you lose a court case? Really, really, really awful. Really, really, really awful. My first case, I represented somebody who was punched. I represented someone who was at a bar and got punched in the nose by a bouncer. And my client was stinking drunk, but my claim was that the bouncer should not have punched him. He should have used more reasonable force, not to hurt my client, but to escort him out. And it was a really, really, really tough case. But my firm thought, let's go for it. Let's try. And the reason we wanted to do this was because my client actually was a perfume sniffer. His job was smelling perfumes for perfume companies, and he would say, that's a nice scent, or that's a nice scent. And when this bartender punched him, it destroyed his ability to smell at such a sensitive level. So it was actually a very big case. He had, he was losing a really specialized career, and he wasn't trained to do anything else. So the jury thought that my client was so drunk that he did not deserve a verdict against the bouncer. And it was my first case, and I lost it, and I was devastated. But I learned from it, and you learn and you go on, but you really do feel bad because you are, I was that guy's chance to remedy his situation. But, sometimes you have to realize, as in anything, as in doctors, they can't cure everything, and nurses can't make everybody, comfortable. Physical therapists sometimes can't teach people to walk, so you do learn what your limitations are. And as you, get older and wiser, you realize, well, I'm a piece in this puzzle. Maybe I couldn't, there was just no way to win that case, but it really hurts. It really hurts. But hopefully you work with people who support you, and, everybody says it's all right. You did your best. It's really like if you lose a game, everybody who, has been on a team will understand that, you win, you lose, but you still have the support of your teammates. And often you have support from your clients. A lot of times if you lose, the clients really just feel like at least they had a voice and they were able to try. So summary, really feels crappy when you lose. How long do you need to wait to take your first case? And what if you fail? Well, we just started talking about, if you fail. I think if you're at a law firm or, whatever you're doing in the legal profession, most employers will recognize that if you did your best, it's not really a bad thing for your career. I think people understand that you can't always win. But how long did it take to do your first case? What lawyers do is they shadow more senior attorneys. One thing to do that is super important is to find a mentor. Find somebody who, and if this is if you're in a law firm or if you're in a hospital and you're involved in the legal world or whatever, is try to find someone who's going to guide you and take you on cases with them. I was very fortunate. I worked for Levy Konigsberg, and Alan Konigsberg was the founding partner of my firm. And I was very fortunate to work with him. My first day of work, he said, come with me. You're going to basically sit next to me at trial and you're going to shut up. And he said, don't say a word because you don't know what to do. All you have to do today is watch everything I do and think about it. And, that's actually what I did. So it was not my first case, but I was very fortunate to be able to watch him. And when younger lawyers start at my firm, that's what they do. They come and watch. They really can't do anything. There's a really, really long training period. When you finally first get your first case, it's probably going to be one that is hand-picked that you will be able to do well. And it also depends what kind of law firm you're at. Law firms who represent large corporations, those lawyers will probably not take their own case for maybe 8 to 10 years. Lawyers who represent victims usually take cases earlier. If you work for the district attorney's office, you'll have a case the first day you work there. There's a whole aspect of law in criminal law where you either represent the state against somebody who is charged with the crime, or you represent the person who has been charged with the crime in the case that the state brings against that person. Criminal lawyers tend to have cases very, very, very quickly because there are not enough lawyers. There's not enough assistant district attorneys to take on the cases. So those lawyers get cases very fast. Don't worry about that. I've got you. Oh, that was summing up. Okay. In a case that someone's got sued, big amount of money, and doesn't have money to pay, would that person go to jail? No. So why would somebody be sued? What do you mean? Like in what kind of situation? Whose question was that? In what kind of situation? If somebody gets sued and they don't have money, do they go to jail?
Like if you harm someone.
If you hurt somebody in a car, like say you drive and you're, okay, so there's a drunk driver, right? And his insurance, like if you have a car, you have to have some insurance, but that insurance, I believe, is only a minimum of $25,000. And this person and you hurt somebody who's catastrophically hurt and they sue you, you would not go to jail. Unless you go to jail for drunk driving, but say you didn't, you weren't drunk driving, but you negligently hurt somebody. They might take a lien on future earnings. They might say, well, if you win the lottery next year and you have all kinds of money, you have to pay this person for what you did to them above the insurance, but you would not go to jail. In Italy, you do. Italy is a very different court system. And if you, I don't know about like a small car accident, but in corporate executives who have been accused of hurting people through bad products, they actually go to jail if they don't have money to pay. So you'll excuse me, but I've got to look at my phone for a second. Okay. Okay.
So, Aubrey, I think one of the things that you mentioned, like what you should ask people before like making decisions about careers is like what a typical day looks like. So what does your typical day look like?
Well, I'll start with today. I'll start with yesterday. I woke up to an email that said that there was an emergency meeting on a case that I'm working on. And so I got the email at 8:30, and the emergency meeting was called for 9 o'clock. So lawyers are always, you always have to watch for emergencies. What are the emergencies? It could be that, I mean, this is not my day because I don't practice in the criminal law field, but lawyers who represent people who are accused of crimes are really on call 24 hours a day, because there are arraignments that happen. Courts are required to give someone an arraignment within a certain amount of time. So if you're called upon to represent someone who's been accused of a crime, that's just like what happened to me today. Like, you just have to get ready. But let's say it's not COVID, you know, and we're back in the office. We've been working from home since COVID, but I would get into my office. I'd have a meeting with my team. I have, like I said, investigators, paralegals, attorneys, you know, sometimes doctors, sometimes, you know, other medical professionals. We'd have a meeting and see, you know, where everybody is going for the day. What's everybody doing? Someone will say, you know what, I got too much. I just can't do it, you know, impossible. And we'll try to shift the work. Or somebody else will say, I'm finished with this. I'd like everyone to review it. Being in a law firm is a lot of teamwork because one person can't do everything. So I like to have meetings in the morning with, you know, really everybody who's on the team, and, you know, set up what we're going to do for the day. So what we do for the day is we look at our cases, we see if there's anything in court that's coming up. We set up some, you know, say we need an investigation. We talk about, you know, who's going to do what. You're going to call these coworkers and you're going to call the client. And we do, you know, our schedule. A lot of what we schedule is we do depositions, which is where our clients have to testify about what their injuries are. And we review their medical records together. We set up a schedule to call them. There's people who just do scheduling. Law firms have, we call them clerks, and they just schedule. They say, you know, client, could you come in from 10 to 12 today? Next client, could you come in from 1 to 2? You know, and they just schedule our lives because there's so many moving parts in cases. Let's see, what else? Can you work with other lawyers? Yes, lawyers work together all the time. Always, we try to build teams, especially on the big cases. We can't do them ourselves. We work together in teams. There could be accidents or products that are used throughout the country. So we're in New York, mostly in New Jersey. We work with, every day I work with attorneys who are from every state. You know, we have to combine efforts because you can't be, most attorneys are not permitted to practice in every state. You have to actually take a bar exam for every state. So there's a lot of collaboration. Or if you're an investigator, if I need to investigate something that happened in California, I'd have to call a lawyer in California, and they would set me up with people to do that. Let's see. How do you get a client? The world, that's a really interesting question. The world has changed. It used to be that I got clients from word of mouth. You know, someone would be in an accident and they'd say, hey, you know, Audrey is at Levy-Konigsberg and she represents people who are in accidents. That doesn't happen anymore. Oh, I mean, sometimes it happens, but it's usually more lawyers these days have internet sites and websites. When I started at Levy-Konigsberg in 1990, and it was really, really, really not classy at all for a lawyer to advertise. and my firm didn't do it. We refused to have, an ad on a bus or on a subway that said, 1-800 call my lawyer or something like that. That was really viewed as really not classy, and we didn't want to do it. And then the world changed, and all of a sudden, if you didn't have an ad on a bus, you were not considered a big firm. We also at first didn't want to get into internet advertising because we thought that was not classy. But now if you don't have a really fancy website, no one believes you're a lawyer. So the way that you get cases and you find people who want you to represent them has really, really changed. The internet has become very important. And to have a presence on the internet is super expensive. That's also another career that I'm glad you raised that, because I wanted to talk to you about. There are people who help lawyers figure out how to set up a website, because law firms really do need a social media presence. So there are a lot of people who work with law firms, and what they say to law firm is, what's your specialty? What do you want us to get out there about you? And you have to be honest. You can't, there are still rules that govern this. So when you have a website, you better, really be able to back it up. When we put on our website, our verdicts, and who we represent, what we do, it's just super important that we're accurate and we tell the truth. Other kinds of lawyers, like if you represent big corporations, that's really hard to get a client of that size. I mean, I represent people like you and me, so it's a little bit easier for me to get clients. But if you are an attorney for a big who represents big corporations, it's a bit harder. But you kind of work with the clients who your big firm already has. Let's see. How many cases do you work on at a time? I work on, most of my cases are very, very significant. There's very catastrophic injuries. So I work on about 10 to 12 that I'm really, really litigating at the time. But I also manage a larger inventory for my office. I kind of oversee, but that's what happens when you get older. You oversee a lot and do less and less. But most lawyers, depending on the firm, if it's a very significant case, you could work on one case. If the cases are smaller, where you're helping a lot of people, say, get disability benefits or something like that, where it's not going to take that long for each case, you could work on hundreds at a time. So it really, really varies. Let's see. A salary of a lawyer completely varies. A lot of the salaries are published. You could look at them. If you just Google salaries of lawyers, they'll tell you that at the larger firms, the salaries are extremely high. It's really not true. When you start off as a lawyer, your salary is really, commensurate with what your experience is. So if you don't have a lot of experience, even though you went to law school and took the bar exam, your salaries start out pretty low. I'm not really in touch with what starting salaries are now, but that's something you could just Google. But I will say that it's very, very commensurate with what your experience is. The more you are experienced, obviously your salary increases. There's a lot of room for growth. And I think what's more important is there's a lot of room for movement. So if you go to a law firm and you realize, hey, I just don't like doing this, you could go to another law firm and do something completely different. The bar exam is an exam that someone must take to be okay. I think we're running out of time. Any last questions?
Yeah, if anyone has any sort of like really burning questions, that if you're on the fence about whether you want to be an attorney or not, this is your opportunity to ask that question.
I'd really say if if you're at all thinking about it, what you could do is, just Google, lawyers and look at the websites. It'll tell you all about them. I mean, if you read Levy Konigsberg's website, you're going to see all about us. You're going to, hear about it, see all the great things we've done, right? That's going to be any firm. I mean, and you don't have to pick mine. I mean, if you're interested in representing people who were charged with crimes, Google Google the district attorney's website. It'll tell you all about it. And all of these sites also have careers. Not the private law firms, but the governmental agencies who were involved in law. They all have career opportunities. So just look at those career opportunities and say, hey, you know what? This is something I'd like to do. Before I went to law school, I also for the district attorney as a paralegal. And I realized, hey, I don't want to do criminal law. I just didn't, it just wasn't for me, but it was a great learning experience. And I only found it because I was like, hey, this looks interesting. You have Google at your disposal to learn anything you want.
So Audrey, like just because you mentioned paralegal, the requirement to become paralegal is not as as long as big as a lawyer. Would you recommend that someone try to be a paralegal before they go into like being a full-fledged attorney?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The paralegals in my office, at least in my department, all are thinking about a career in law. Most of them go on to law school after working for 2 or 3 years. Some of them do that so they could save some money and also to make sure that that's what they want to do. Many of them, don't want to go on to law school. They want to, they saw it and they don't like the atmosphere in the law firm. And they're like, get me out of here. I'm really glad I saw this because I don't want to make a mistake for the rest of my life. Others love it. One of the most important people in my office is an investigator. He does not want to be a lawyer. He started out as a paralegal and he's still like, the title doesn't really matter, but he's an investigator. He investigates for us, which means he finds coworkers and he, gets medical records. He does a lot of things that are super important. And he just learned, I don't want to be a lawyer, but I want to be an investigator.
So we are literally down to the last minute. So participants, please take this time to thank Audrey Raphael for joining us today. You guys can clap in real life or put up the little reactions, please. Show that you appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Audrey. We appreciate it.
Good luck to all of you.
And thank you for everyone's questions. I felt like you guys were just coming forth with the questions. That was great. And I really, so this is awesome.
Great.
And for those of you, there is another session, another career panel at 11:30. Please check your emails for the link. If not, have a happy return to your classes. And once again, thank you, Audrey.
Good luck.